Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Ray. Thanks for joining our live stream today. We are streaming to Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube and doing a Meet the Podcasters today. So this is something that we do at mindbodyspirit.fm to give you a chance to meet some of our podcasters that you might not be familiar with and check out what they do and their shows and hopefully follow and start listening. So today I'm really excited to introduce Reverend Sue Frederick. And we were so happy when she agreed to come on board the mindbodyspirit.fm network here. Sue is a lifelong intuitive and a licensed Unity minister. And she's also a master numerologist, angel communicator, and the author of several books, including the Angel Up series, and also the Sacred Numerology workbook, which is there's a new edition that's available right now. I was noticing today on Amazon. And she's helped thousands of people connect with their guides, angels, and departed loved ones. And her work blends angelic communication, numerology, and soul level wisdom to uplift and empower people. So you got to check out her podcast, Sue Frederick's Mystical Conversations. And she shares her incredible wisdom on these podcasts. And also she does a lot of video. So welcome, Sue. I'm so happy you could join me today.
Oh, Diane, it's a pleasure. I always love talking to you. We have a great rapport.
We do. And this is so fun to talk about what you do because you're so gifted and you've got so many amazing things to share with people. So I wanted to let people know about the podcast, Sue Frederick's Mystical Conversations. And for people who are new to the podcast and they're just discovering you, how would you describe your podcast to people if they're just new to your work?
I have a knack for finding the most interesting people in the universe.
You do.
And we talk about the greatest topics, spirituality, numerology, angels, other galaxies, purposes of our life incarnations, soul plans. And I just love it. I cherish every one of these conversations. And I always make sure that I'm guiding it in a way that the everyday listener, even if they're not quite convinced that, all this is real, they're still going to be able to take something from it that's going to help their everyday life. So I guess it's kind of a mixture of this very mystical conversation and then very grounded techniques and ideas to help us just navigate our earth lives.
And we need that help now more than ever, for sure. And a lot of people are interested in these modalities and maybe they're not familiar with it. So you do a great job of making all of this accessible. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the numerology that you do. You're a master numerologist. And I have to admit, I'm a math phobe. It's like I'm terrible at math. And so I don't really like numbers, but I am interested in how numerology works and how you can apply it to your life. So maybe you can let us know how numerology can help us with events, things that are coming up, relationships. How can we apply it?
I think they're the most user-friendly divine tool that we're given here on Earth because people can understand a little bit of astrology, but then to understand more of it is really a lot of work. It's very complex. But numerology is a gift from the angels to help us remember who we are as souls who chose to incarnate here, why we chose to incarnate here, what our life purpose is, what our agreements are with all the people in our life, those people who we love and those people who have hurt us. It's all part of the plan, the soul plan that we make before we come here. And numerology outlines that plan for us better than any other system. And I've studied it since 1980 because the reason I found it was my husband, my beautiful young husband, died and I was 30, he was 32. He had colon cancer suddenly. We had been so healthy. We'd been mountain climbers and taught for Outward Bound, and he died of colon cancer. And my question was, why would good young people like Paul suffer and die such a horrible death? I can't make peace with this universe or with any definition of God when I look at that question. And I saw therapists and I saw hospice counselors and I saw priests and I saw ministers, and everybody was a little bit comforting. But when I sat down and had a session with a numerologist, it changed my life in an hour, because right there in the numbers, I understood why I chose this lifetime, why I agreed to walk Paul through that death, that exit point of his, why his soul chose a suffering ending to his life path, and that he was still communicating with me and my purpose moving forward. And I have studied it and used it every single day since then. And so the numbers have just revealed more and more truth to me over time. And anybody who's worked with me or done a session will tell you it's a very different approach to numerology. I do not believe that there is such a thing as a bad number or a bad birth path. It is all beautifully designed to help us evolve in exactly the ways we came here to evolve.
That's interesting. You mentioned that the numerology that you practice or that you've studied is a little different. I've heard of the Pythagorean method of numerology, and what you do is called sacred numerology. So there really isn't a bad number, but say like, I don't particularly like fives. I don't know why, or threes, is that just the energy of that particular number?
That's because they are calling you to address a certain part of yourself that you're maybe not ready to address. So for example, 5 is the number of courage and change. Who likes change? Hardly anybody. And stepping out of the boundaries, feeling courageous. And I love 5-path souls because their whole life is on the edge, and they often will even fall off those edges and suffer with addiction. My husband, Paul, was a 5-path, and he had an extraordinary journey as a mountain climber, but he wasn't conventional in any way. He hadn't figured out how to be successful or wealthy. None of that was important to him. He was physical. He was in his body. He loved the mountains and sharing that with people. And his exit point was a path of physical suffering. And that's all very 5, because his soul believed that the quickest way for him to burn up any remaining negativity that he had picked up in his lifetimes was to burn it up with illness in the end. And he chose that. We don't have to choose that kind of exit, but he chose it. And by the time he left, he was a pure being of love, light, no anger, no negativity, no fear. And that's the energy of the 5.
That's so interesting. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the angelic realm too, because you're so connected to the angels. And can you tell us a little bit about accessing that and receiving help from angels in our everyday lives? What if you're skeptical? I know some people think, oh, there's no such thing, but angels are still there to help us, right?
I mean, we come to this earth as wide open souls, remembering who we are, remembering that the angels are with us. And then this culture, this world, very left brain, logical, dominant, talks us out of remembering that and says, hey, pay attention in school, follow the rules, don't daydream, don't be creative because you can't make a living doing that. Those are all the messages we get that sort of force us to shut down that open-hearted knowingness that we are divine beings who temporarily dropped into a physical world. And instead we believe that the physical world is all there is. Well, the great wake-up calls come like grief, losing someone we love and suddenly hearing from them, and things, and illness even will get us out of our bodies till we have a bigger vision. And those wake-up calls get us to remember, wow, I am not alone here. This is a universe filled with love, divine beings, angels. And, I grew up Catholic, so I was very aware of angels. But when I walked away from dogmatic religion quite early on, I left it all behind. But the great thing has been having the angels really come back in my life. They appeared in my bedroom a few years ago. I have a picture of it even. And they gave me this vision behind me, showing me that the light is always winning. And they've been so present because I was ready then to really feel their frequency and download their messages and share. And so now I get to teach these amazing angel classes. They're all on my website. And everybody who takes them feels that frequency of angelic presence, which is unlike any other kind of presence. It is such a high, loving, sweet, nurturing energy. It wipes away all fear. It eliminates any doubt or cynicism the minute you feel it. And my favorite easy way to connect is angels love me, lift me, help me, heal me, and just breathe into those words. Angels love me, lift me, help me, heal me. And you begin to feel that soft, gentle love that they bring. They are our first responders on earth. They are here to help us every moment of every day. They can't interfere, but when we invite them, they can step in and lift our frequency into love.
So all we really have to do is ask.
Ask and then trust that they're with us. And when I just wrote 3 angel books in the last year, and they were speaking in my ears through that whole process, downloading those books. And it was an extraordinary experience because every day I'd wake up and go, all right, angels, what goes in this chapter? And, you know, they would just pour it through me. And I go back and read those. Whenever I'm teaching a class, I'll go, wow, I got to read that sentence again. That's really amazing. And it's not because it came from me. It really, really came from the angels.
You have such a connection. You know, you're so connected, and you describe yourself as a lifelong intuitive. So these gifts must have revealed themselves early on.
Well, I was one of the strange kids, you know, who would have dreams that I would come to the breakfast table or even go to school and tell my friends, and then that exact thing would happen during the afternoon, and they were like, you know, they were Catholic, so they were like, she's a witch, you know. So again, I learned how to kind of shut it down to try to survive. And one thing I tell everybody is, don't shut down the truth in your heart. Never shut that down to try to fit in. That's the worst thing we do to ourselves here. And I grew up in a very practical left brain family in the South. You know, the men were all engineers. My dad would always ask me things like, I read your poetry, Sue. What does it mean? Like, he just so struggled to embrace something beyond left brain logic. And so many people get really embedded in it has to be logical or it's not real. And I grew up in that. But my visions and my presence gifts from angels and especially when Paul died. The moment Paul died, he brought me into heaven with him and showed me the divine order of the universe. And then I got the numerology reading. So by 30 years old, I completely knew the truth of this world, that it's not what it seems, and that the physical world is a temporary journey.
Yes, society and family many times can shut those doors, you know, because I was always the one interested in those things as well as a kid, metaphysical things, and you know, had the tarot cards at the slumber party and that kind of thing. But I didn't know what I was doing with it. But I knew there was something else there to get in touch with, and I'm still interested today. So that I guess that's why I'm doing this. But I wanted to ask you, right? Like we're always still searching and looking for those answers. So I wanted to tell people about the podcast episodes that you've got that they can listen to now. And one that I wanted to mention that was really interesting was the astrologer that you had on your show, Rick Levine. He's a world-renowned astrologer, and you had some great conversation about what we have to look forward to. You know, we're just getting into this year. I mean, I can't believe we're almost through January, you know, and I've already felt such a different energy for 2026, you know, much more hopeful, even though we've had so much challenge going on this year. So maybe you could share a little bit. I think people need to hear there's some light coming, you know, and I hope people go and listen to that episode, you know, but maybe you could share a little bit that you and Rick talked about.
Uplifting conversation because, you know, in numerology, we know that there are 9-year reinvention cycles for each of us personally, but also in the universal number. So 2026 is a 1. It's a whole new beginning of a 9-year cycle. Last year, 2025, was an ending of a cycle that lasted 9 years. You can go back and follow that when it started in 2017, and it just contained COVID and chaos and conflict. And now we're starting a new cycle where we actually have the opportunity to rebirth our consciousness here and drop the war mentality that has governed our world for throughout time on earth. And so the astrologer Rick Levine, he's so brilliant. People have to go back and listen to that episode. He explained how, according to the planets and their locations, things are lined up the way they were right before the Depression, right around the time of World War II starting, and then going back, it was also the lineup that was happening in the Civil War in this country, and now for the third time. So we can see in the planet alignment that we are at a rebirth point. But what we also know is that we don't repeat cycles just for the purpose of repeating them. It's like having a lifetime incarnation. You don't come in to do the same thing or have the same patterns. You come in to transcend and to step above what you couldn't step above before. So now we have this amazing opportunity to break the cycle that has held us down in war, poverty, conflict for so long, and really bring us to a whole new frequency of acceptance, of love, of cooperation. I mean, we can look to all the great science fiction. Well, I just always like to go back to Star Trek, the original. I was around when those first episodes were coming out, and we couldn't get enough of it, but they always talked about the societies that were based on economics were so primitive, and they kind of laughed about them. Well, that's where we are. We're a society based on money. And yet in our future, there is possibility of free energy that's going to be appearing in the next cycle. There's a possibility of interplanetary intervention for good, not to destroy us, but to help us realize that we can do this differently. And according to someone I interviewed today, the other galaxy beings who watch over planet Earth, they really, really believe that we are now going to be able to shift out of our war mentality. But it's up to each of us to not go into that mental conflict state that we so easily jump into when we see something we don't like and we want to go to war with it, because that is holding us back down in that frequency.
Do you think that we'll have interplanetary definite contact, in our lifetime?
I believe this year. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't want to scare people. But according to what my astrologer Rick said, he said this summer, June and July, will be the most intense part of our rebirth. And June and July is not far away, and we know from whether we're looking at numerology, astrology, conversations with other beings, they're all watching over us. They want us to succeed. We are a valuable planet in all the galaxies in the universe. And humans are really admired for incarnating in this really hard earth realm that we incarnate in. Like, they look at us and go, those are brave souls to incarnate in that crazy dark world, But we learn so much here, and we learn to open our hearts. We learn how to find love in the midst of pain, grief, and conflict. No greater lesson than that.
On your podcast, at the beginning of this live stream, you said, you know the best people, which you do. You've had some great guests like Rick, we were just talking about, and great conversations with other spiritual teachers. Recently, like Suzanne Giesman, you had an amazing conversation with her. So as a teacher yourself, I'm just wondering, like, when two high-level teachers get together, or you're talking to someone like Suzanne and Rick, what do you bring, or what do you get from those conversations?
Oh my gosh. I haven't come down all day from my conversation this morning with Wendy Kennedy, who this podcast will be live tomorrow. And we just, being with people like that, your frequency just goes up to the highest level. And It's just magnificent, and I love it. And I'm so blessed that I get to do this work. And people like Mark Anthony, who I've had on my podcast, I'm going to have him on again. Brilliant scientific mind with quantum physics and spirituality all blended in together. There are so many brilliant high frequency people on the planet right now teaching what they know to teach. And when we come together and have conversations, you can't walk away from that without feeling exhilarated and uplifted.
It must be such a buzz,
It is.
just that energy. That's so great. Well, I'm excited to hear your new episode. And people that are searching for you, out in the world and the interwebs, you've got meditations on video, also on your podcast. I see a lot of those, the angelic meditations that you share. We have some on our YouTube channel too. We do. Yeah. We definitely need them. And we've got a playlist for people to check them out. So I just was curious about your own meditation practice. Do you get these downloads for these angelic meditations? And
oh my gosh,
how is your practice, cultivated over time?
Well, it started with, actually with TM back in the 70s. I was one of those early adapters of transcendental meditation, and it was life-changing because it showed me how to quiet my thoughts. And once we learn how to quiet our human thoughts, we are now able to really hear our higher soul. And our higher soul comes in with wisdom and love. And then we can hear the other beings, the angels, the departed loved ones trying to give us hope. The first step always is quieting the human mind. And when you meditate, you learn to feel the difference between the human mind of worry and anxiety and fear versus the higher frequency of our own higher souls and our guides. And once you know that difference, you can shift out of the monkey mind into the higher mind. And that is the greatest gift we can ever do. So I always teach meditation. I always teach guided meditations because we can leave our body and travel with our spirits into the higher realms and get refreshed and talk to our guides and talk to the angels and have a healing and then come back into the body, and we're very renewed. I love those meditations, and my YouTube channel is filled with them. The other thing I love is when people go to my website, SueFrederick.com, they can use my free Soul Path Calculator to input their date of birth and find out their numerology birth path, their personal year, all kinds of good stuff. And then on my YouTube channel, they'll find if you're a 3-path, this is what you're here to learn. And so they'll find all these videos that are very simple and quick explaining what these paths mean. And there's nothing better than understanding why your soul came here and how you intended to manifest your great soul mission in this life. I almost think once we know that, nothing else can bother us, nothing can stop us. We can move through grief, we can move through this crazy world of conflict because we understand why we're here.
That's such an amazing tool. I hope people go to your site and check that out. I'm going to type in that information and see what comes up. So before I let you go, though, I want you to be able to share with people, I know you've got the Wendy Kennedy episode coming up. What else do you have in store for the podcast and the work that you're doing?
In the next few months, I'm also interviewing 3 moms who have created a documentary. It's not released yet, but there are 3 moms who had 19-year-old sons die early, one by murder, one by overdose, one by suicide. And they were devastated. And then their sons came through in so many profound ways that they documented with video, with audio recording, to show their moms that they were still alive and that all was well, and they wanted their moms to be happy. And they're now writing a book about it together, and they have a documentary coming out later in the year, and I get to interview them, and they're going to show some of the clips of things they recorded from their children. So amazing, so uplifting, and people like that.
Yeah, that sounds like an incredible project. And I look forward to hearing that, when you get them on the show. and
Yeah.
share that information. So I want people to check out the podcast, listen to some of the episodes we talked about today, Sue Frederick's Mystical Conversations. And you can look on our website right there at the bottom, mindbodyspirit.fm, also on all the podcast directories, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast or your favorite podcast app. And Sue, thank you so much for joining me. And everybody, thanks for listening today and checking out the mindbodyspirit.fm podcast network.